Is Bill Dehas. We almost forgot that last year and this year. Let me start over. My name is Bill Dehas. I am the interim CEO of Clermont Senior Services and also the chair of the OKI 5310 oversight team. So thank you for everyone that came today in person. Thank you to everyone that is here on Zoom. It looks like we've got about 14 people joining us today on Zoom. So thank you. We've got some, I know Travis has some exciting things to share today about the process, but just wanted to get us started. So let's just go ahead and do that. Let me advance, Travis. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. Okay, so the 5310 program. This is our 2023 fiscal year application process. So the goal of the 5310 program is to improve mobility for seniors and individuals living with disabilities, essentially by removing barriers and gaps for those transit services that they so very much need. So we're looking for increased mobility to employment, medical appointments, grocery shopping, educational opportunities. And, another thing left out there is weekend hours or evening hours. That's something that a lot of these individuals, older adults and those with disabilities are looking for and often can't find. So that is a big gap that needs to be filled. To be eligible to apply for the 5310, applicants must be listed in the coordinated plan. And that is accessible on OKI's website. And if you find that your organization is not listed, you can get in touch with Travis Miller here at OKI, and they can make sure that happens. So here you're seeing the timeline for this year's application process. So December 5th today, everyone is here. And then it looks like February 3rd is going to be our due date for submission. And this is going to be an online application this year. So again, this will be something that Travis hits upon here in just a few minutes, but giving us plenty of time to get acclimated to that new process. And Travis's team will certainly work with everybody if there are any questions that arise. March 23rd, the oversight March 2023 sometime, date to be determined. The oversight team will come together and review those applications and make their recommendations. April, May, OKI review that. Their executive committee takes action. May, June, FTA review. July, August, those projects are put into an FTA grant. And then fall of 2023, we're looking at subrecipient agreements being executed for those awardees. Let's see here. Oversight team. So this is a list of the organizations that make up the oversight team. We are a group of regional transit providers that come together, and we are tasked with assisting OKI with the coordinated plan. And we also review those applications, and as I mentioned just a minute ago, make recommendations to OKI with regard to organizations that should be awarded. I think this is where I'm going to stop actually and pass it on to Travis Miller. He's going to go through the process and all that.
Thanks, Bill.
Good morning, everyone. So we'll walk through the program itself before we jump into the applications, or we'll give you a demonstration of the new application form, got some screenshots we're going to walk through. But before we jump into that, who is eligible for this? Essentially, this program is designed for private nonprofit organizations, those organizations that are providing transportation services or enhancements to transportation services, specifically to seniors, individuals that are 65 years or older, or individuals with disabilities. Now, we do allow private operators of public transportation, as well as state and local government authorities that meet some certain criteria And that means, you know, if we have a local government that is not provided service through a private or a transit agency, would be eligible to step in and use this funding to provide services for their residents. And transit authorities are also eligible for this funding. However, transit authorities are required to provide more local match for the funds that are available. For private nonprofit organizations, the local match is 20% of the ask. The federal portion is 80%. With transit authorities, it's a 50-50 arrangement where the transit authorities are required to provide 50%. Eligible activities, up to, or at least I should say 55% of the funds that OKI provides overall for all of the projects that we fund have to be considered or have to be traditional projects. And those are defined by FTA. And those include vehicles for transporting seniors or individuals with disabilities, mobility management programs where organizations are providing assistance, call center assistance or navigation support assistance to participants, or acquisition of services through a contract. All of those things are considered traditional activities. Non-traditional activities are also allowed, but we can only spend up to 45% of our annual allocation towards that. So as we're looking at the applications coming in, as long as we have at least 55% of the funds being asked for falling in traditional, we have some room to do some non-traditional, but we need to be able to spend 55% of our allocation on traditional projects. So if you're interested in a non-traditional project, there's no guarantee that we will be able to do that, but we would still encourage you to apply. We'll certainly work with you as we do that. Non-traditional would include travel training programs. If you're looking to build things like sidewalks to allow for seniors or people with disabilities to get to bus stops or to get to locations, signage and wayfinding, these are all some examples of the non-traditional things that we can fund, just depending on the makeup of projects that we receive through the year. So there's some questions on that. So how much funding are we talking about? Here's a list of the allocations. Last fiscal year, as well as this fiscal year, last fiscal year, we still have just over $500,000 that has not been spent. So these funds were carried over from prior years. So we're starting the year with 554,000 and some change. Our allocation for 2023 hasn't officially happened yet. We expect that to happen in the spring. It usually does, March, April. So during this process, before we're making awards official, we expect to know what our allocation is. And we expect it to be in the 2.1 million. Last year was just over $2.1 million. These funds are done by formula. The federal bill that provided the funds, that allocated the funds to the region hasn't changed. So as we're going into from last year. So as we're going into this year, we're expecting 2.1 million. Until we have that, we don't know for sure. So when we receive that, when we're making the awards, all of the applicants will certainly be transparent about the funds that the region is receiving and what's available as the oversight team is doing their work and making recommendations for funding. Again, 20% match is required on any application that you're submitting, unless you're a transit agency, and then it's a 50% match requirement.
You want to say a little bit more about that in terms of what the match does it have to be cash in hand or services provided, or
it has to be cash? It has to be. Yeah, we don't accept in kind. Okay, that's an OKI policy in our program management plan. So it is cash. Thanks, Steve. That would be the match expectation. And there is a certification form in the application where you would calculate that amount and sign that you have those funds available. They can't be federal funds. So you can't use other federal funds from another grant program as match. They need to be a local source. So those could be general revenue of your organization, or if it's a local community, their local revenue source, but not federal.
Visions for waiving it?
No. Thanks for the question. All right. So I'm going to jump in again before we get to the application. Specific to vehicles, and I know not all people applying for funds or agencies applying for funds are interested in vehicles, but several of you are. So we are making some changes regarding the vehicle process as you're applying for vehicles. There are 3 types of vehicles that are available. These vehicles will be purchased through the state of Ohio contract, the state term contract. So ODOT manages that contract. They work with vendors to make sure that those vendors are meeting all of the federal requirements. And OKI, as a metropolitan planning organization in Ohio, has the capability to purchase off of that contract. So it saves us the time of vetting the vendors and going through the procurement process, which is the reason why we use ODOT. So if you're a Kentucky organization or an Indiana organization, you can still purchase off of this contract because you're purchasing it through OKI. We would be making a purchase on your behalf, but this is where these are the agency or the vendors that we would be purchasing, and the dollar amounts that are negotiated by ODOT are what we follow. In the past few years, this is the vehicle acquisition process has been very difficult. There's been supply chain issues, the computer chip issues, problems getting vehicles, problems ordering vehicles. We're a couple of years behind in getting vehicles ordered because of the supply issues. The other thing that occurred this year is increase in pricing, a dramatic increase in pricing due to inflation, over 60% increase in pricing on vehicles. And so this has created a lot of challenges. Reason I'm bringing all this up, in the past, those of you that have applied for vehicles, we've required you to complete a cost estimate form that would select the vehicle and all the options, allow you to work with the vendor to select all those options, come up with a final price that's agreed upon. And that's what we base the award on. With all of the changes that have been happening in the last couple of years, and we expect to be continuing to happen through this year, we're not going to have you jump through those hoops to get down to the penny on what the dollar amount of the vehicles are. What we're doing is estimating our best guess of what these 3 vehicles are going to cost. And we're using that round number for your application purposes and for the grant award purposes. So what that means is you're putting an application together for a vehicle, you're using an estimated amount, which I'll get to in a moment with each of these. That estimated amount is going to change. When we are ready to award the funds, that's the point in which you'll be filling out the options forms, working with the vendor, coming to that to the penny price for the vehicle. At that point, we'll adjust the grant amount and make sure that we've carried over enough funds. If there's an increase, if there's a decrease, then there would be less match than what you've committed to pay in the application. And your 20%, but you need to be aware that that's an estimated number, and the grant award is going to be an estimated amount until we get to the final grant disbursement. Are there any questions on that? I know that's a big change from how we've done business in the past. And I open that up to anybody on Teams as well. If there's a question, raise your hand or just shout it out, and you can unmute yourself. All right, no questions, and that was clear.
What you're saying is that if we wanted to get a vehicle, it's not clear how soon the vehicle could arrive after
Well, we would expect the vehicle in a year, but the biggest change is the dollar amount that you're going to be using in the grant application if you're asking for a vehicle. So let me get to that. The 3 vehicles that are available, we'll start with accessible vans. And you can see on the slide the vendors that are in the current ODOT term contract. Even this is subject to change, but there's multiple vendors that are providing this to applicants currently, and we would expect you to have those choices even next year after the awards have been determined. The cost estimate we're using is $70,000. Could be that the final vehicle was $67,000. It could be that it's $85,000. We're going to proceed in this application with a $70,000 amount, and that's what you'll do your local match commitment upon. And that's what we'll do the initial award on, with the understanding that we'll amend the amount to the actual amount of the vehicle when it's ordered. Light transit vehicles available. And again, multiple vendors. We would expect multiple vendors for you to select from. The cost estimate we're going to use is $120,000. There's also different types of light transit. There's honeycomb, shell body, there's narrow body, extended body. So there's a pretty wide variety of light transit vehicles available. But we're going with an estimate of $120,000 for the award. And again, as we get into the selection of the specific vehicle and all of its options, you'll determine which light transit vehicle you want along with the options that you need for your agency. Okay, so we'll move into our coordinated plan. Bill mentioned earlier, every applicant is going to need to review our coordinated plan. The most recent coordinated plan was adopted in 2020. This is the same plan that was current a year ago. So if you applied for these funds a year ago, it's the same plan. No changes have happened to the coordinated plan. We do update the profiles for agencies. So we've added a few agencies to the plan, but that hasn't changed the recommendations or the goals and the strategies identified in the plan, which are specifically what you need to be looking at and addressing and contemplating and addressing in your application. This is important because this is the bulk of your scoring. When we go through the competitive selection process in the application, you're responding to questions that we assign scores to. And those questions, majority of those questions deal with how well your project or your proposal advances the strategies or the goals of our coordinated plan. So it's critical that you be familiar with this plan. The identified gaps and needs that are included with the plan are listed on the slide here. And as your project is helping address these, that's what you need to be articulating in your application. Again, that's what we're basing your score on in the competitive selection process.
Yeah.
The identified needs and the strategies to improve these transportations are listed here. These come right out of the plan. Expanding transportation availability for the target population. Those are seniors, people with disabilities, better serving people in wheelchairs, increasing the types of destinations that are offered to this population, considering more affordable fares, travel to and from work, or work training, job training. And then finally, integrating new technologies. So if you are investing in a technology that helps improve access to and mobility enhancement to these populations, those are certainly things that that would advance the goals of the coordinated plan and allow you to score pretty well. Evaluation criteria, again, there's specific questions in the application that you'll be answering, and these are the points that are available for those questions. So how well are you filling the gaps of the target population? How well are you undertaking the coordinated plan strategies? Those are specifically in chapter 4 of the coordinated plan when you visit that and review the plan. How well does your project serve the target populations? Coordination efforts, and you'll notice that the coordination efforts, fourth one down on this table, is worth more points than the other criteria are. And a big part of the investment of 5310 program is to try to share services, try to have organizations work together, share resources as much as possible. So where you're doing that, where you have partnerships with other agencies, other organizations to help advance your mission, to help provide services to your constituents, to your customers. This is where we need to hear about that. And this is where we base that 25 points on, up to 25 points. Sustainability and steps taken to ensure that the investment, the 5310 investment, is going to be a sustainable one is a critical criteria. And this is particularly critical for programs that are funding staff or funding operations. The intention of 5310 isn't to always be a revenue source for that activity. The intention is, we use the word seed money, to help your organization make investments necessary to train staff or to establish your program. Once established, there needs to be revenue streams that would help sustain your program in the future, not continuing to come back to the 5310 program for that support. So that's what's meant by the sustainability here. Vehicles is a little different. Vehicles is something that if we fund that, we're monitoring the use of those vehicles as long as through the useful life period of the vehicle. So it's expected that you're going to be using that vehicle through a 5-year, 10-year period, depending on the type of vehicle that's funded and its useful life benefit period. If you reach a point where you're not using that vehicle, we would take that vehicle. This program would require us to ensure that that vehicle is being used for constituents across the regions, would work with other agencies, other organizations, and transfer ownership. And we've done that a few times in cooperation with agencies. We've never had a conflict situation, but it is something that we monitor, and we would have to if you're not using the vehicle as for its intended purpose or for the volume of trips that were expected if it's just sitting still. So again, that's where the sustainability comes in. You need to provide evidence and show, your plan and your need for whatever program or project you're using for. And then the quantification of the anticipated benefits. This is how many people are you providing a service to? How many trips are you providing? In case of providing a vehicle, how many miles are you planning to put on those vehicles? That's the quantification of those anticipated benefits that we're looking at, and you would be quantifying in the application, and we assign points to. I mentioned technology earlier. There's 5 bonus points in this process where you are utilizing technology. So we're hoping to push the envelope a little bit. If there's an app or some other use of technology that helps you enhance these services, your transportation services to the end users, we give you a bonus of 5 points in this process. So again, just our OKI's encouragement of that. Yeah, Patsy.
So as a question, I work with the Cincinnati Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired, and we don't have any vehicles. However, we have the travel training program and the mobility management program. As a technology application, we just improved our entire ERP system. You know what that is?
No.
It stands for the system that coordinates everything. All of our clients,
Okay.
all of our billing, all of our invoices, all of our everything. It's the system that runs the agency per se.
Okay.
Would that potentially apply? Because
Potentially.
our clients and
Absolutely.
their services.
Yep. Now
Thank
you need to articulate how that ties into your specific program and how it's advancing it. Yeah, what you've explained there would be an example of
Would be-
technology use. Mhm.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. Helps clarify what I was trying to explain. Any other questions on that? See, we've had a couple of questions in the chat box. And thank you, Suzanne, for chiming in on the presentation will be available. We're also recording it, so we'll hang the video out for folks to view later today. There's a question about, since there's a shortage on vehicles, is a way to look at other options like purchasing used vehicles. Now, the requirements of the 5310 program and the use of these funds do require and limit us to ordering new vehicles for the purpose and the intended purpose of the funds. Thanks for the question. I guess I should elaborate a little bit. There's a lot of strings attached to the funds, as you might expect, being federal funds. Build America is a major string for the vehicles. So when we're purchasing used vehicles, it becomes very difficult to be able to trace that, track that. So for that reason, it's ordering new vehicles is the limitation. So thanks for the question. All right, now we're going to jump into the application itself. What you see here is a screenshot, and I'm going to go into the website in just a moment. But when you get into the website, the most important part of the place where you're going to want to start is what we've circled in red with the red dashes. The blue bar is the application itself. So when you're ready to submit the application, you would click that and it would take you into the portal where you'll be entering the information in the application itself. Before that, however, we strongly encourage, in fact, you'll have to click the item above to review the instructions. When you go into the instructions, you have the ability to view a PDF of the application form, the online application form, to fully understand all of the questions and review all the questions so you can get your materials together. The drawback of the online form and the system that we have set up is you can't save the work as you're going. So this isn't something that you can work on for an hour, save, come back a day or two later and build on what you've done. When you enter the information in this application form, you're going to have to enter it all at the same time and submit it when you're done. So it's going to require the bulk of your work being done in advance so that either in a Word document so that you can cut and paste from them and prepare the entry forms as you go. The other thing that is going to require the advanced work on your part is the preparation of all the attachments. We have several attachments that accompany this application, depending on the type of application you're submitting. Not all of the attachments are going to pertain to you, but several will. Several are required. So completing those, having those saved in advance so that you can load those in the form is going to be necessary to do. So we would ask you to start with, after you've reviewed the applications and the questions and put some thought on how you're going to respond to the questions, the next step would be to start completing your attachments. So that when you get into the application form, you can just be uploading those as you go. Bear with me just a moment and I'll share the website. All right, so when you come into, first place you need to go is the OKI website, which is www.oki.org, and that will bring you to this page that you see here. You're going to want to go to transportation, which is one of the drop-down menus at the top. And then you'll find funding opportunities about halfway down. You click on funding opportunities. It brings you to this page. These are all of our funding opportunities currently open. There's a table you'll need to scroll down to, and you'll find the 5310 program. That's this program. And there's hyperlinks here for you to jump into. We'll have the slides here as well from today and the recorded version you'll be able to find as you follow the links. But if you click on the informational application, that brings you to the page I was just showing you the screenshot of earlier. So, and the blue bar is what you're going to click to go into the application portal itself. Instructions, you'll take this hyperlink to, and I'm going to come back to this in a moment. If you scroll down, you'll just find narrative description about our program. You'll find my contact information. So at any point, if you have questions or confusion, or you're not able to find information you're looking for, don't hesitate to reach out, shoot me an email. We'll get back to you quickly. And as you scroll down, there's even more information. Most of this information we're going over today in today's workshop with the timeline, the deadline for the application, the next steps beyond that, the eligibility activities that I went through earlier, the evaluation criteria that you'll want to refer to as you're putting thought to your questions, the program management plan. So if once you receive your awards, what does that mean? What's required in terms of agreement with OKI? I mentioned monitoring earlier of your vehicles. What does that entail? All of that is spelled out in the program management plan. So we would encourage you to take a look at that as well. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my screenshots. It's a little easier. We can go back into the website if there's questions or you want to see anything live, but I've got some pre-prepared things so we don't miss things in this in the workshop.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Betsy.
Is there a way to print out the application in order?
Yes. Yeah. So if you go to the instructions that I mentioned, the link, the read instructions before applying, yeah, you'll see what's on the left side of this screen is actually the screen that you'll come to, and you'll be able to upload a PDF of the full application form there, and you can view it on your screen or print it. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so yeah, review the sample application and then begin completing the attachments. And you'll see all the red required means what it says. Those are required attachments for every applicant, so don't miss any of those. There's some that aren't required, just depending on the type of application, but certainly start with those that are required. We need a letter from a transit authority. This is required from everyone. This needs to state from them your relationship with the transit authority. FTA strongly discourages, and we can't duplicate efforts with funding. So if a transit agency is already providing a service that you intend to provide constituencies, it's not something that we would invest in or would be eligible. So we need a letter from the transit authority that serves the area that your project is serving, stating that they're aware of your application, of your agency, and are coordinating and working with you, and that the service that you're providing goes beyond the level of service that they're able to provide constituency. So this is an important part of the application, and one that's in the past has been overlooked by agencies. So I'm spending a couple more minutes, or by applicants in the past. So spending a couple more minutes today just to emphasize the need for this. I know it takes time to reach out if you don't already have a relationship and to get the letter. All of the transit agencies in our region are familiar with the 5310 program and familiar with agencies, requesting funds for it. So they're going to know what you're talking about when you reach out to them. But it's a step you need to take as the applicant and have a conversation about your program project and get a letter from them acknowledging that they're aware of what you're submitting, and you need to upload that the application to us. We need your financial records. So we need ideally a single full audit. The most recent one that your agency has had conducted needs to be uploaded. If you, some agencies fall beneath the $750,000 federal minimum for requiring a single full audit. In that case, a financial statement is what we would be looking for. So what your accountant is putting together on an annual basis for your agency, that final report is what we need to have submitted. And this is an FTA requirement. Before we give federal funds, we need to see your books and make sure that everything is in order so that we can provide that with federal funds. Organizational chart is highly encouraged. Not everybody has an organizational chart, depending on the size of your organization. So we aren't making it a requirement, but we would expect, we would want to see on this organizational chart who's in charge of the organization. If you have a board, how your staff works with the board, the hierarchy of decision making, and probably most importantly, where your project and where the project manager that you're asking funding for fits within that. Is it the centerpiece of your organization? Is it a part of a department? Where does it fit in your organization? So that's what we're looking for with the organizational chart, and encourage everybody to prepare and submit that. Again, it's optional. Certification of the coordinated plan. This is important. This is a federal requirement. That
Yeah, I'm already working on that. I'm gonna have Stu
we'll see if we can
go get some stuff. It'll be wipes.
apologize for that. If you just make sure everybody's got your, we're on a regular Zoom meeting, so make sure you have yourself muted unless you're asking us a question. So certification of the coordinated plan. This is your statement that yes, I acknowledge that I've reviewed the coordinated plan and that our project is consistent with it. This is belts and suspenders on our part, admittedly, but it is a requirement that we want to have documentation that you have reviewed and you've stated that you've reviewed the coordinated plan and understand the relationship of your project and the coordinated plan. Now, having answered all the questions in the application, you should have done that. I think that's obvious, but we need to have that documentation because it's important to us. It's important to FTA that the federal funding is consistent with our local coordinated, our region's coordinated plan. So that's attachment D. Attachment E are letters from coordinating agencies. Again, this isn't required, but we would expect them from the majority of applicants, if not every applicant, because 25 points has to do with coordination. So these are the letters from those agencies that you are coordinating with, just providing as evidence of that coordination. There's no limit or expected number of letters. This all depends on the program, your organization, number of partners you have. So this varies, depending on you and your relationships. This is where you would be providing, again, that evidence of that coordination, those coordination activities. Attachment F is the certification of local match. Talked about that a few times already. This is where you're stating that, yes, we understand that 20% of the project amount is required at a match, or 50% in the case of a transit authority. And you're providing us the source. So this is where you would list where those funds are coming from, or identify where those funds are coming from. And this requires a signature from your executive, primary executive of the agency, as do all of the other certifications that are attached. Okay, this is specific to vehicle requests. So talked at length earlier about the dollar amounts that we're using. So you can do the math on the entry, the application, and what you're asking for based on that. But we need more information, than just the dollar amount and quantity of vehicles. So there's a row in the form that allows you to answer the questions that you see in the column headings. So this includes the how much use you're expecting to have for the vehicle that you're asking. We're looking for mileage, trips generated. That's what you're going to be populating in these boxes. When you go through the application form, there's only one row that defaults, but there's no limit on the number of vehicles that you apply for. So if you're applying for multiple vehicles, you go to the right side of that table and click on the plus sign, and that'll populate a new row. And you can keep doing that for as many vehicles as you're requesting. Just continue to add rows and enter that information for each individual vehicle. The other point I'll make here, the current vehicle inventory. So as we're considering awarding new vehicles, we need to understand how many vehicles you currently have active. In order to do that, we need your inventory. OKI does maintain a transit asset management plan. So we've worked with all the 5310 agencies and a few more on maintaining an inventory. We updated an inventory just earlier this year on for each agency. So you should already, your agencies, if you're eligible for 5310 funds, you should already be in that inventory. There's no guarantee. You may not be. But we ask you to check that. So if you go to that inventory, you can upload that on the site, look for your agency, and hopefully you're there, and then look at your inventory and confirm that it's correct. So in the application form, if it is all correct, you don't have to do any more work. The work is done. We know what vehicles you have in your inventory, and you can just affirm that in the application form. If that inventory is not correct, or if your agency isn't in the inventory, then we need the corrected inventory, or we need your inventory. So we would ask you to upload a table of your vehicles so that we have that inventory. Again, it's not something we want every agency to do if we already have the information. We're trying to avoid duplicate efforts and work that doesn't need to be done, but we need to have it right. So any questions on that? I didn't explain that very well, I don't think. It's clear. Okay, good. All right, preventative maintenance. So this is an eligible activity for 5310 vehicles. So whether you're asking for funding for 5310 vehicles in this round, or you already have vehicles from prior rounds that were funded with 5310 funds, those would be eligible for preventative maintenance funds. So preventative maintenance are things like oil changes, fluid changes, tire rotations, things that even brakes are included in eligible activities for preventative maintenance. So we have a table that's pre-prepared for you to use as a template. You can upload that and enter your information within it based on the number of vehicles, the quantity of vehicles, your inventory of vehicles that you're asking preventative maintenance for. And there's set dollar amounts for each of the activities that are eligible for preventative maintenance that are calculated by this table. So if you're requesting preventative maintenance, you need to upload the template, enter your information, save it, and then that would be your attachment to the application. So we know exactly how many vehicles and the quantity, the dollar amount that's necessary for your preventative maintenance program. And this goes out 5 years. So you can, you don't have to ask for 5 years, but we've set it up for that to go ahead and populate and do the math for you, calculate the amount that you would be requesting for a 5-year period. Title VI. So every agency that receives funding that OKI would enter into a subrecipient agreement with to provide funding to must have a current Title VI plan in place. It's a requirement of federal funds. So this has to do with discrimination. It has to do with your own policies, how your boards are set. When you receive a complaint, a civil rights complaint, what is your procedure? What are your policies for addressing that complaint? All of those things are spelled out in the Title VI plan. If you're not familiar with a Title VI plan, currently don't have one, you can prepare one. as part of this application form. And we provide a template, again, ODOT, Ohio Department of Transportation, has a pretty good template that we've shared with agencies across our region in order to prepare a Title VI plan. We can provide technical assistance and support as you're putting that together. Happy to answer questions. It's not a heavy lift, but it's a requirement. It's also a plan that needs to be approved by your organization, so by your board, whoever the executive decision makers are, and your organization needs to adopt this plan, and we need evidence of that as well. So we ask you to upload. So if you already have a Title VI plan, that's easy. Just upload your current document. Those of you that have received 5310 funds in the past, we have your document on file, but as you're applying, we would ask you to upload it again, just so that we know that we have the most current in our inventory. So just plan to upload your current plan, even if you know we have it, please. That's it. The other attachment I didn't go through and link is the application certification. So you'll upload a form that so it's basically a checklist of all the things that are included in the application that you go through and check off and then sign it and upload that signed document. That's just certifying that you didn't miss anything and that we know that you didn't miss anything on the application. Yeah, Jim.
Questions on the system itself. When you log in, is there a reason to log into the system ahead of time? Like, does something need to get approved or processed to get access?
No, there's not. It's open to the public. Anybody can go into it and start populating information. So.
And for the application questions itself, do you upload a PDF of the application questions, or are there spots that you copy and paste?
There's spots that you copy and paste. So in the form itself, there's boxes or data field entries where you would type the information in. So it's best to use a Word document to pre-prepare your responses and then paste those in. We do have word limits and you'll see that on the PDF in parentheses underneath each box tells you the word limit, and that varies depending on the question. So make sure you're looking at that. Don't do a lot of extra work and not be able to have the room for all of that information. Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
This plays on you. So when we go in, we create an account and can we go back and update, change? And so, okay, so it's all got to be prepared and then put in at one time. It's been, okay,
Right.
Thank you.
And apologies for that, but that's the best system that we've been able to put together. And it's, it works really well. It's pretty intuitive, as you'll see as you get into it. We've tried to keep it simple. But that's the drawback, is you'll need to pre-prepare your responses or expect to spend a lot of time when you're entering the application. It's up to you. You're, however you want to do it, but we would advise that you pre-prepare and paste things in.
I just want to make sure I
So
understand.
you don't lose anything. Yeah.
We recently started a grocery pickup and delivery service. Is that something that may qualify for this? It's for the elderly.
If it's for the elderly, yes.
The seniors don't actually go to the grocery store. They order it, we go pick it up and we deliver it.
Let me verify that, because Meals on Wheels is not a program that is eligible under 5310. This is a little different, but it's kind of the same service, it sounds like.
Yeah, and it's not Meals on Wheels.
And I apologize, that would not be.
Yeah, the seniors are not going with
specific
us.
language. Okay, now this is for trips that you're providing for a senior.
Okay.
Assistance to help them make a trip. Thanks for the question. Sorry for not having the right answer the first time.
So that raises a question with me. We have volunteers that actually help people that are blind or visually impaired to go to and from medical appointments and or grocery shopping, things like that. Would that, a portion of that volunteer program driver be?
If they're taking the individual that's blind with them, yes. Yes, that would be, would almost be a navigation type system, maybe not completely, but we do fund navigation support where an individual is going with the targeted population to a doctor's appointment, or in this case to a grocery store, then yes, that would be eligible through the mobility management program definition.
Thank you.
Good questions. Yeah, Jen.
And then in terms of types of requests, I recall last year you said you are open to multi-year requests.
Yes.
Consider multi-year requests When you fund that, does it come out of 1 year of your funding? Like if you do a 2020?
Great question. A great question. Ideally, it does. So it's in the grant and we know exactly what has been awarded. You've got multiple years to draw that grant down. So that's where the multiple years comes in. There have been cases in the past where and this often happens when we have more proposals than we have funding. The oversight team has looked at the proposals and understood that this is a multi-year proposal, and understood that not that we're ever guaranteed of anything in life, but we're pretty certain that in at least the next few years, we'll have 5310 federal funding available. So it could be, we've funded portions of multi-year request and then had that applicant come back the second year, the third year, and re-ask for funds. But we would ask you, if it's a multi-year, it's a multi-year, put that in your application, propose that, and we'll move forward with that as we can. If there's not enough funding, we may say, we're going to award the first 2 years of this 3-year program, and you need to come back in 2 years and request the additional funding. Great questions. You're making me think this morning. I should have had an extra cup of coffee. Yeah, Patsy, go ahead.
Back to my question about the volunteer drivers. So the volunteers are free, so that would not be a cost. The cost would be managing, recruiting, training, managing
That's fine.
volunteer drivers.
That's fine. That's still an expense of your agency to provide that service. So
Thank you.
you're welcome. You're looking at the chat box. Want to make sure we're caught up. Vehicles, okay, they're all vehicles. I'm going to ask Rashir, can you unmute your mic and maybe ask that question? I think maybe you were asking about the preventative maintenance, but I'm not sure. You're asking about vehicles that OKI has given us, or all vehicles. Go ahead and unmute and.
I've got it. Thank you. Yeah, I got the question.
Okay, I see you asked it before I got to. Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions from anybody joining us on Zoom? Feel free to unmute and just shout the question out. Florence, do you have any announcements or anything you want to share with the group? We have Florence Parker in the room with us.
Morning. I don't really have any formal announcements to make, but I do want to remind everyone, I am looking for good topics that you think as members of the TIOT group would like to hear. So if you come across a good speaker or a good topic, subject matter, etc., please let me know, because I really do need help in coming up with some presentations to keep you interested as members of the TIOT group. Thank you.
Thank you, Florence. Bill, anything else as we wrap up? All right, well, we appreciate all the interest in the program. Look forward to getting your applications. Again, if you have questions as you're going through the process, you've got my contact information. Feel free to reach out to me. Summer Jones also assists with this program. Her contact information is on the slide. Florence, you just heard from, her contact information is here. Any of us are available to you at any time. Let us know how we can help. And again, we look forward to seeing your applications in February and getting some good awards out later next year. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.